The evening air was filled with clinking glasses and laughter as she raised her glass in a toast to freedom, her wedding ring still gleaming on her finger. That simple act hit me like a punch to the gut. In that moment, I realized I wasn't her husband anymore. Not really. Just a placeholder, an afterthought in the story of her life. And there I was, foolish enough to bring a bottle of wine to the gathering. It was her cousin's birthday. Nothing elaborate, just a casual backyard affair with folding chairs, paper plates, and plenty of cheap champagne. A dozen people mingled under string lights in her aunt's yard. I hadn't even planned to come. Clarice had told me it would be fine if I skipped it. It's all family anyway, she'd said. You'd be bored. But I showed up because I always did. Always tried. She wore the green dress, the one I'd bought her for our 4th anniversary. I once told her it made her look like spring itself had walked into the room. That night, though, it made her look like someone I no longer recognized. As the night wore on, everyone took turns sharing lighthearted toasts, childhood stories, jokes, memories. Then it was Clarice's turn. She stood, glass in hand, and declared, "To making better choices starting tomorrow." Laughter erupted. Someone whistled. But then she turned to me, her gaze sharp, and added, "I regret every single day I've wasted playing the perfect wife." More laughter followed, but not from me. Her uncle chimed in, "Clarice, come on," trying to lighten the mood. She shrugged, sipped her drink, and muttered, "What? It's true." I didn't say a word. I didn't storm out or make a scene. I just sat there, swallowing my emotions like I always did. The drive home was silent, suffocating. Neither of us spoke. When we got back, she kicked off her heels the moment we stepped inside, tossing them carelessly into the laundry basket without so much as glancing at me. Then she looked at me, her expression cold and distant, as though I were nothing more than a houseplant, something to either nurture or discard. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I finally asked. "Oh, please, stop being dramatic," she shot back. "You're always so sensitive. It's exhausting." That word, exhausting, cut deeper than anything else she could have said. Something inside me cracked. I went to bed fully dressed, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone beside me. Not once did she turn to acknowledge me. Not once did she apologize. But I didn't cry that night. No, I waited until the morning. I let her sleep in, made her coffee, folded the laundry. Then, as she shuffled into the kitchen, still yawning, I handed her an envelope containing a single note. "You regret every day with me. Try one without me." And with that, I walked out. I expected yelling, maybe a flurry of missed calls or texts accusing me of overreacting. That would have been typical Clarice behavior, needing the last word, twisting things to make me feel small and childish for daring to express pain. But instead, there was silence, absolute silence. I ended up at a rundown motel near a highway exit 2 towns away, the kind of place where the air smelled faintly of mildew and forgotten dreams. Sleep eluded me. I lay on the creaky mattress, replaying her words in my mind like a broken record. "I regret every single day." Each loop felt heavier than the last, a relentless reminder of how far we'd drifted apart. For years, I'd convinced myself I was doing everything right, showing up, trying harder, hoping against hope that things would improve. But now, lying alone in that dim room, I understood the truth. Some bonds can't be mended when only one person is holding on. The sound of her voice reverberated more intensely than the bustling traffic outside my window. At 9:12 a.m., I glanced at my phone. Silence, no notifications. By 10:43, still nothing. As noon approached, I convinced myself she hadn't read the note yet, or perhaps she was in shock. Or maybe, and this was the hardest part to admit, she simply didn't care. My curiosity overwhelmed me. I drove back to our neighborhood, parking across the street from the house. Not too close, not conspicuous, just distant enough to observe without being noticed. Her car remained parked in the driveway, as did the box of old Christmas decorations I'd reminded her 3 times to store in the attic. It sat untouched on the porch at 2:04 p.m. She emerged shortly after. No tears streaked her face, no robe draped her shoulders, no disarray in her hair. Clarice appeared composed, even content. Dressed casually, phone in hand, she laughed at something on the screen before heading back inside. No signs of distress, no frantic searching, no indication that she had even registered my absence. I wasn't sure what I expected. A dramatic breakdown, perhaps? A moment where she realized how far she'd pushed things, sobbing into the couch cushions and pleading for my return? Instead, she looked like someone who had just finished yoga and was about to meet friends for brunch. I returned to the motel feeling more invisible than ever. That night, sleep eluded me once again. But I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the Notes app on my phone and began documenting every instance over the past year when I felt neglected. Every sarcastic comment, every dismissive glance, every time she forgot something important to me and blamed it on her busy schedule. The list grew longer with each entry, but by morning, everything shifted. At 6:17 a.m., my phone rang. A familiar number flashed across the screen. I hesitated, almost letting it go to voicemail, but eventually answered. To my surprise, it wasn't Clarice. It was her boss. His voice shattered everything I thought I knew about my wife. When I picked up the call, I braced myself for a telemarketer or someone returning a lost item. Instead, I heard a voice I never anticipated addressing me outside of work-related meetings. It was Gerald, Clarice's boss. He cleared his throat awkwardly, as if regretting the decision to dial my number, then asked, "Are you okay, Mason?" The question caught me off guard. I didn't even know he had my contact information. I lied and said I was fine, asking why he was calling. He paused, then delivered words that made my stomach churn. She hadn't shown up for work, called in sick, but something seemed amiss. He explained that he only reached out because she'd left her tablet in the office the previous day, and when he opened it, he found something unsettling. My heart raced as he continued. This wasn't about returning misplaced property. Slowly, carefully, he revealed what he'd seen. Personal messages, explicit ones, exchanged with someone named T. Dozens of them. I tried to stop him, but he pressed on. There were videos, unprofessional ones. One filmed in our bedroom while I was visiting my mother 2 months prior. Same sheets, same pillows. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Gerald assured me he hadn't watched more than a few seconds, but the damage was done. My mind reeled, trying to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the reality unfolding before me. The call caught me off guard. He said he just wanted to warn me because, as he put it, you always seemed like someone who deserved better than how she spoke about you. That remark cut deeper than I expected. My mind immediately went to all the times I wondered how far my humiliation had spread outside our home. After hanging up, I found myself frozen on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper. Thoughts raced through my head. Every business trip she mentioned, every late night attributed to work obligations, it all felt different now. The stories that once seemed normal suddenly didn't add up. But I hadn't questioned them then because I trusted her more than I trusted myself. I didn't cry, not right away. Instead, I grabbed my keys and started driving without a destination in mind. An hour later, I realized I was parked outside her office building. Her car was there, despite her claim of being sick. I waited. 15 minutes passed before she emerged, looking uneasy, glancing around as if expecting to be followed. Maybe she sensed Gerald had contacted me. Or maybe guilt was written all over her face. What happened next blindsided me completely. A man walked out behind her, laughing and resting his hand low on her back. It wasn't just anyone, it was her ex. And judging by his demeanor, he clearly believed I was out of the picture. For a moment, I almost got out of the car to confront them. My hand hovered near the door handle, but something stopped me. If I'd approached them like an upset spouse demanding answers, I knew exactly what would happen. A smug grin from him and a dismissive eye roll from her. No, I refused to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I watched silently, taking in every detail. His fingers lingered too long on her back, and she didn't pull away. Their body language wasn't casual or friendly, it was intimate, as though their connection had never wavered. Her laughter pierced me. It wasn't the restrained politeness she reserved for me at home. This laugh was uninhibited, carefree, alive. In that moment, I understood how long she'd been living another version of herself, one meant for someone else, not me. They climbed into his car, and against my better judgment, I followed. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, my heart pounding with anxiety. I didn't have a plan if they noticed me tailing them. I just couldn't stop. They arrived at a cafe downtown, one of those artsy spots we used to frequent early in our relationship. She once called it our place. Now it belonged to them. From the parking lot across the street, I watched as they ordered lattes and sat close together. Too close for mere friendship. At one point, she leaned over and touched his wrist. That simple gesture hit me harder than anything else. It was the same move she used to make with me when she wanted to convey, "I missed you," without saying a word. I stayed there for over an hour, watching them share something unfamiliar, something I no longer recognized. Eventually, I left, returning to the motel where sleep and appetite eluded me. I replayed everything in my mind. The toast at the party, the note I left, the silence, her fake illness, the boss's voice, the cafe, the touch on the wrist. Each memory looped endlessly, refusing to let me escape. The memories replayed in my mind endlessly, like a disturbing horror film of my own life. The next morning, I did something unexpected. I messaged Emily, her sister. Clarice always described Emily as overly nosy, too blunt, and unable to stay quiet when she should. That's exactly why I reached out to her. If anyone would give it to me straight without sugarcoating, it was her. My message was simple. I need to know if Clarice has been seeing someone. Please don't lie to protect her. Her response came quicker than I anticipated. 3 dots followed by a flood of text. She didn't just confirm it, she gave me his name, Travis, her high school ex, the same guy she once dismissed as a mistake she'd never repeat. Emily revealed it had been going on for months, that the family suspected but stayed silent because I was still trying. Still trying, as though that made me pitiful. I thanked her, closed my phone, and sat in the dark for what felt like hours. I wasn't ready to face Clarice yet, but Travis, he was about to learn how finished I truly was. I knew where Travis worked, a warehouse on the outskirts of town. Clarice used to mock him, calling him dull and saying his life revolved around forklifts and Friday night bar tabs. Yet here he was, back in her life, smirking behind my back while I picked up her dry cleaning and handled her prescriptions. I didn't want to confront him recklessly, so I sent him a short, cold message. We should talk man to man. You know why. He replied within 10 minutes, unfazed. Didn't expect you to find out this fast, but yeah, sure, I'm free after 6. No apology, no denial, just confirmation, as if betraying me was some mutual agreement we'd both signed up for. I waited at the diner near his job, the same place Clarice and I used to grab pancakes after late-night movies. He pulled up in his dented pickup, strolled in like nothing weighed on him, and sat across from me with an infuriating calmness. He didn't pretend to feel remorse. He explained that Clarice had reached out to him after some fight we'd had last fall. According to him, she spoke about me like I was an obstacle, always there, always in the way. I asked him point blank if they'd slept together in my house. Without hesitation, he shrugged and said, "Not like you were using it." Something inside me snapped. I stood up abruptly, startling the waitress who likely expected violence. But I didn't yell or throw a punch. Instead, I locked eyes with him and said, "You can keep her, but don't expect to keep what she took from me." Then I left him sitting there with the check. Back in my car, I made a call I never imagined making. I dialed my bank and requested to speak to a fraud specialist. Clarice hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she had access to our joint accounts. As soon as I mentioned her name, the representative hesitated before saying, "Actually, there was a flagged transaction yesterday. Thousands withdrawn, a new account set up." The envelope sat on the kitchen table, its presence both deliberate and damning. I had returned home in a haze, my thoughts tangled with suspicion and dread. The house was eerily silent, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest. My hands trembled as I opened it, already knowing what I'd find inside. A note, brief and cold, written in her familiar scrawl. "If you're reading this, you already know." Know what? That she left without a word? That our life together had been nothing more than a facade? I moved through the house like a ghost, searching for answers in empty spaces. Her absence wasn't just felt, it was visible. The mug she always drank coffee from, the toothbrush still damp from mornings we shared, the scarf I once wrapped around her neck, all gone. She took only what mattered to her, leaving behind fragments of a life I thought we'd built together. It was as if she had sifted through our existence, keeping the parts worth carrying and discarding the rest. Her bedroom told the real story. My side untouched, hers stripped bare. Not hastily packed, but methodically cleared out over time. How had I missed it? The signs were there, hidden in plain sight. Each missing item now screamed betrayal louder than any argument ever could. Sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the emptiness where her shoes used to sit neatly aligned, I noticed something wedged between the mattress and headboard. A plastic bag, crinkled and forgotten. Inside were receipts, papers, and an envelope addressed to someone unfamiliar. Mrs. Holloway, my last name, but not her full name. The contents of the envelope confirmed my worst fears. A temporary driver's license issued under a new identity, complete with her face but a fabricated middle name. This wasn't just an escape, it was a reinvention. She hadn't merely walked away from me, she had erased us entirely. Using my name, my trust, she had crafted a new version of herself, one unburdened by the past. Or by me. Then came the phone call. Blocked number flashing across the screen, I hesitated before answering. The voice on the other end belonged to a stranger, yet her words hit like a freight train. "I don't know you," she began, "but I met your wife, or ex-wife. She's staying with my brother." There was a pause, heavy with implication. "She said you were dangerous, that she had to leave because of you." My stomach churned. Dangerous? Me? The man who gave her everything, who believed in us even when cracks began to show. Now, not only had she abandoned me, but she had rewritten history, casting herself as the victim and me as the villain. That moment stayed with me, replaying endlessly in my mind. It wasn't just the lies, it was the erasure of truth, of love, of anything we might have meant to each other. Every drawer I opened, every corner I searched, revealed another piece of the puzzle. But instead of clarity, all I found was confusion and pain. Who was she, really? And who am I now, left behind in a house that no longer feels like home? The woman on the phone, a stranger, explained that Clarice had been living with her brother, claiming she had fled an abusive marriage. She painted me as manipulative and unhinged, someone who masked cruelty with flowers and false kindness. It struck deep. I was the one who made tea for her during cramps, stayed up through nights when her mother was ill, and never once raised my voice despite her weaponizing silence like a blade. When I asked the caller's name, she replied, "Monica." Her tone wasn't malicious or provocative, it was bewildered. She mentioned Clarice spoke little about our past, but accused me of controlling everything, locking her out of accounts, tracking her phone, even threatening to disappear if she didn't comply. None of it was true, not a single word. But it didn't matter, because she told her version first. People tend to believe the story they hear initially, no matter how distorted. I hung up trembling. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It felt like character assassination. Clarice hadn't merely left, she had rewritten us, casting herself as the victim and me as the villain. Worst of all, she seemed untouchable. That night, I did something unimaginable. I gathered every shred of evidence I possessed. Screenshots, bank statements, text exchanges, voice memos from happier days where she joked about playing the sad wife card to avoid obligations, photos of us laughing on days she now claimed were filled with fear. I meticulously organized them into a private folder, not to fight back, but to shield myself if needed. At 3:27 a.m., my phone buzzed. An email from Clarice appeared. No subject line, no greeting, just 3 sentences. "You made me do this. I had to protect myself. Please don't make this harder than it already is." That was it. No explanation, no apology, no attempt to undo the wreckage. I stared at the screen until dawn broke. Later that day, I took a step I never thought I'd have the courage for. I contacted a lawyer. It wasn't about divorce, that was inevitable. This was about safeguarding my reputation, my finances, my future. Clarice wanted a clean exit, but she wouldn't take my life with her. There was one final task ahead, the hardest part, calling her parents. They were likely next on her list, and I refused to let her poison them against me, too. Reaching out to her parents was the last thing I wanted to do. After everything Clarice had fabricated, the lies she planted like invasive weeds, staying silent wasn't an option. Her father answered, gruff, traditional, never fond of me. But when I mentioned Clarice's accusations, there was a long pause followed by a heavy sigh, the kind born of someone weary from hearing half-truths disguised as fact. "She said you were unstable, that you abandoned her," he admitted. "But we knew something didn't add up." "She's changed." Then her mother came on the line. I braced for judgment, but instead she asked, "Are you eating?" That simple human question shattered me more than any of Clarice's betrayals ever could. I revealed everything, not out of revenge, but because I needed someone to know the truth before she could twist it into something unrecognizable. Days turned into weeks. I took the necessary steps, filed the paperwork, froze our shared accounts, blocked her number. The silence that followed felt different this time. It wasn't hollow, it was calm, almost soothing. For the first time in what felt like forever, I began to sleep soundly again, cook meals for myself, and rediscover the quiet moments without dreading the next emotional explosion. Then one day, an envelope arrived. Inside was a handwritten letter from Clarice. She admitted regret over how she'd handled things, claiming she'd panicked when she realized Travis wasn't who she thought he was and that their relationship had already fizzled out by then. "I didn't deserve what happened," she wrote, but it was the last line that lingered in my mind long after I set the letter down. "Maybe you weren't perfect, but you were real, and I miss that." I didn't respond. Forgiveness isn't always something you're asked to give, and some wounds run too deep to mend. Some betrayals don't lead to reconciliation. They serve as reminders that perhaps the future we were heading toward wasn't meant for us in the first place. Months have passed now, and the sharp edges of anger and bitterness have dulled. I kept my name, my sense of self, and most importantly, my truth. And in doing so, I've found a kind of peace she may never experience. Which part of this story resonated with you the most? Was it the raw honesty of laying it all bare, the weight of her final words, or the quiet strength found in letting go? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear them.